Hey everyone, I hope you're all doing well today. This time we are going to be talking about my favorite indie games, or the best indie games. I started playing indie games because I just found those to be more enjoyable than some of the AAA games. So I gathered together this list of the ones that I feel are the best. These are all games from smaller studios, they're games that I own, and these are the ones that I feel are more enjoyable than the rest of the indie games that I have. The first one up here is Stardew Valley. This is a game that I started playing on the Nintendo Switch, and it was one of the first games I owned for that system. It was something that I didn't know that I wanted. It was like playing a lost Super Nintendo or Sega Genesis game. This is a farming simulator / adventure game. You play as a farmer who's escaping from a dead-end job and takes up residence on his family's farm. This story's plot and just premise hits a whole hell of a lot harder for me now than it did back in 2017 when I started playing. Anyway, over the course of the game, you build relationships with the townsfolk, and you can even get married. There are also some fetch quests that you can complete along the way. All of that stuff is optional, but it makes the game a lot more fun, and in my opinion, it makes it a much better game. This was like a breath of fresh air when I first found the game. It reminded me of Harvest Moon, but much better than that. 7 Days to Die has turned into a really great game. I used to call this scary Minecraft because the graphics were more realistic, the zombies and mutants look a lot better, and the crafting system I think is better than Minecraft's because it is simpler than that. I've been playing this game on and off for years, and I like it now a whole hell of a lot more than I did probably 5 or 6 years ago. The improvements that they've made to this game have been just really, most of them have been really great. There have been one or two that I've had issues with, but overall what they've done to change the game has been really awesome. I'm not really a big fan of online multiplayer games, but it was a lot of fun when I played this with a few friends a while ago. As long as nobody took it too seriously, because there's always that one guy that takes things way too seriously. 7 Days to Die is still being updated, and I'm looking forward to seeing what they do with this in the future and what they add to the game. Monster Sanctuary was my game of the year last year. This was the best game that I played of 2022, and I think it's an amazing game that made me want to go back and play some of the similar Pokemon-like games. This is a turn-based RPG where you form a team of little monsters, and you basically go through a pretty awesome story to find out more of the secrets about the sanctuary that your character lives in. The game plays out like a Metroidvania, so if you don't like that style of play, then maybe this won't be for you, but the turn-based RPG stuff is pretty awesome. As you play through the game, you collect more monsters, and more of the map is revealed to you. You also hear more about the lore that's kind of behind this place. I liked everything about this game. Monster Sanctuary is great gameplay, beautiful graphics, and the story's pretty awesome. The only negative thing that I have is that not all of the monsters evolve, and some of those evolutions are kind of bad. Undertale has one of the best stories that I've experienced in a video game. The characters are wonderful, the combat system is really unique, and it's great. The game rewards you for being nice to people, and it makes the game harder when you do this, but it gives you a better ending where everyone is happy, and no one is, dead, and there's no evil demon child telling you to, try to get your soul back, or something weird like that. The ending confuses the hell out of me, even though I've written quite a bit about it. The game really goes against what you've learned from other RPGs. Instead of grinding for experience and gaining levels, you're encouraged to stay at level 1 and find ways to end the battles peacefully. Characters will also treat you differently depending on how you act in the game. The game also changes based on how you've treated characters or if you've restarted the game. It can get easier or harder depending on what you want to do and which ending you want to try to achieve. When I started writing character guides and puzzle guides for another website, Undertale was the first game that I really got into. Playing it was wonderful, and learning about each of the characters in it was just a great experience. Mount & Blade Warband is my favorite game of the Mount & Blade series. Like the first game, this one is a sandbox action RPG. It gives you a brief tutorial at the beginning, and then you are on your own after you've learned the basics. But you get to pretty much decide how you want to play, as long as it's within the limits of the game. You can join one of the other countries, you can start your own country, or you can just be a merchant or some group of mercenaries that loans out your skills to whoever. It's a pretty awesome game. I have a script for this, but I'm just going to go off. I love this game so much. I have spent way too much time playing it. I think it is just absolutely amazing. It is kind of unbalanced, at least in this version. There are a lot of fan mods out there which change things around, so there is a lot to do in this, and there's a lot going on. Oxenfree is a pretty simple point-and-click adventure game, similar to the LucasArts adventure games where you can't really die and you're just sort of experiencing the story. You move your character around in a 2D field and interact with the other characters and environment. You also have a little radio that is essential to do really anything in this game, and you do get an upgraded radio as well. The story centers around 5 kids who go to this abandoned island and experience some weird supernatural crap, which are ghosts from a submarine. You then have to kind of decide how you want to go through and which ending you want to get. If you want to try to save everyone, then you play a certain way. If you want Clarissa to get abducted by the aliens like I did because you hate her, then you can do that as well. The characters' opinions of you will change over the course of this, and there's a pretty big dialogue tree to choose from. It's a great game. Citizen Sleeper is a terrific science fiction game. The story feels like it could exist in the Battle Angel Alita manga or that universe where you have just evil corporations controlling everything. The entire universe is kind of corrupt, and people are just sort of used and tossed aside. In this game, you play as a sleeper, which is basically an android that has been loaded up with someone's consciousness. Before the start of the game, your character sold their body to a corporation and worked as slave labor. It was a nice way for you to get into space, to experience all of the joys of space, but you're now locked into what you have to do. Your character and a group of other sleepers escape, and you end up on a place called the Eye, where you have to go through and just try to survive. And more of the plot and the lore behind this world gets revealed as you play. It's pretty awesome. In the Guild 2, you create a guild. I know, surprising, isn't it? And you try to eliminate all of your rival guilds. You start with one family member, and you have to marry and have kids in order to keep the game going, as your characters do age and eventually die. This works for the enemies as well, so you don't have to try to kill off all of the members of the other guilds. You can just kind of limit the number of people that they can get married to. You also can work your way into the political system of each town on the map, depending on how many there are, and yeah, you can basically make it tougher for all of the other guilds out there and a lot easier for you. Especially if you do decide to start going on a killing spree, it helps to have every member of your family controlling the court system. It's kind of amazing to go through and play this and slowly take over the political systems of all of these different towns and set yourself up as this giant conglomerate, which can essentially get rid of all of your rivals. It's a great game, it's a lot of fun, and I've spent way too much time playing it. FTL, or Faster Than Light, is a roguelike space game where you fly a little ship and you go from place to place trying to stay one step ahead of an incoming rebel armada so that you can eventually tell the fleet that you are a part of, who won't actually do anything because it's up to you to defeat the big bad mothership at the end. I don't understand why you needed the rest of the military, but hey, they're there to not actually help you. One thing I like about this is the game puts you on a clock. Your ship is trying to outrun the enemy fleet, and while you might want to explore each part of the map, you have to avoid the incoming enemy wave because that will kind of wipe out any resources that you can gain. You also have to conserve your fuel and your missiles as well, so there's a lot of things that you need to balance from a resource standpoint. It's a very challenging game, but a very fun one. Have you ever been reading a horror manga like Hellstar Remina and wondered if it would make a good adventure game, or a good video game? Well, World of Horror answers those questions, and I feel it's a resounding yes. This is a beautiful game that I enjoyed an awful lot. World of Horror draws on Japanese horror stories and Japanese myths, and uses a manga artwork style in order to create a really compelling world that you want to see what is around the next corner, even though it's probably going to horrify you. It's a great game to look at. It feels like a point-and-click adventure, but there are some RPG elements to it, and each thing feels just a little bit different. You're given different cases that you can go and do, and each one has you collecting different items or doing different things in order to beat that case or solve that case. You also kind of feel like you're losing your mind because your character is sort of doing that as the game goes on, or at least that was my reading of all of it. It's a very fun game, and it's one that I would definitely recommend if you're looking for a horror game. Dredge is a horror fishing game, which is something that I never thought I would want, but now that it's here, I'm so happy that this game exists. In Dredge, your character gets shipwrecked on an island and becomes that island's fisherman. For reasons, mostly because he's in debt and he has to pay it off. And you get your ship, you tool around, and you end up gathering a bunch of different fish, as well as some mutated ones. And you learn more about the people on this island chain, their different relationships to each other, and kind of the weird stuff that's going on here. This game works with the town with a secret trope. So you're the outsider, and this town has a bunch of secrets, a bunch of myths to it, and you need to uncover all those secrets in order to figure out exactly what's going on here. The ending is pretty great, where you kind of your actions decide what it's going to be, whether you die or you keep playing, and it's just an awesome game. I had a lot of fun with Disco Elysium. I had no idea what I was getting into when I picked this up in order to do a review of it for kind of an awful company, but besides that, let's get into this game. You play as an alcoholic detective who has temporarily lost his memory, badge, and gun while investigating a murder. Memory loss honestly helps this game out an awful lot because as your character is learning more about this world, you as the player are learning about it. And just the history and lore in this game is awesome. I love everything about it. I want more games set in this world. They don't have to be the same as Disco Elysium, but it would just be cool to explore the different parts of this place. Mostly because I found just the history of Revachol way more interesting than kind of the murder plot that they were going on with. I kind of hope that the developers behind this game create something similar to this because I don't think the company is going to. In many ways, Superliminal is an awful lot like Portal, or it feels like it could take place in another experiment inside of the world of Portal, because that's really what this is. Your character is participating in a sleep experiment, and things seem to have gone wrong. This is a fantastic idea for a video game because it makes you question what is real and what isn't. This is a first-person adventure game, and you're just going through it solving puzzles and trying to get out of the dream state that you're in. You can manipulate objects by changing their size and orienting them in different ways. The game also kind of messes with your perspective of objects and tricks you into thinking something is there when it really isn't. So you'll be moving towards something that you think is a door that leads its way out, and it turns out it's just a painting on the wall. Or you walk towards a chess piece, and it turns out that chess piece is painted on the wall and the floor, so it changes when you get closer to it. It's a fun game that'll just really mess with you. Firewatch is one of those games that I had heard about, but didn't really try until recently. Its story is really what carries the day here, and it's one of many games that I feel gets erroneously labeled as a walking simulator. It does dial back the gameplay to a bare minimum in order to focus on the story it's trying to tell you about, which is concerning self-healing and dealing with loss and that sort of thing. At least that's what I was getting out of the story while I was playing it. It takes place in the late 1980s, and you play as someone who's working for the National Park Service in Wyoming. I don't really think that you're a park ranger. I think you're just one of the volunteers that's sitting up in a fire lookout place, trying to see if the woods catches on fire. Your character is supposed to be working on a novel, but probably not. It's a very relaxing game for me, to be honest, and I was really digging the art style while I was playing this. Deep Sky Deralicts reminds me of other roguelike card battlers, similar to Darkest Dungeon or The Spire or stuff like that. This one takes place in deep space and has your party exploring derelict ships. This is a job that might exist at some point in the future, and I think it's pretty cool. The game consists of you completing missions to those derelicts, and those missions involve finding items, defeating monsters, gathering information about the ships, blah, blah, blah. That's not what's really important. I was loving the gameplay in this because I love these card battler games. I also think the art style is really awesome because it just makes you feel like you're in a dark future at some point where you have people who are cybernetically augmented or something like that, and it doesn't always look like they've done it right. Almost like this is the cheap version of what it's supposed to look like. I really enjoy games like this, and I'm glad that they're still being made in some way. These seem like a natural extension of other trading card games, but without the constant expansion packs and rule changes and garbage like that. There are many more video games out there that could have made this list, and this list could have been an awful lot longer. The more that I thought about it, the more that this list changed. I would add games onto it, take stuff away, and I just had to cut it off at 15. I find that indie games are where smaller development studios can take more chances, and you find games that you might be looking for that the bigger studios just don't care about. Some of the other games that I thought about for this list were Prison Architect, Signalis, Spiritfarer, Soma, Stellaris, Judgment, Apocalypse Simulator, Wolfstride, Dune Spice Wars, The Mortuary Assistant, and Rewind or Die. Several of those games are probably going to end up on a different list, probably in October at some point, but we'll see. That's still a ways away. This is just a short list of my favorite indie games. I know that I missed many more or haven't gotten around to playing some of them just yet. I'm looking forward to seeing what else is out there and updating this list next year if I need to. Let me know what some of your favorites are in the comments below, and I will talk to you all later. Bye.